This was the moment the Warriors dynasty came to a close. Well, among other things, of course, but after winning the improbable championship in 2022, just when everyone had counted them out after losing Kevin Durant in 2019, the Warriors showed to everyone that they weren't done. They were still one of the best teams in the league, a team that should never be taken lightly, in large part due to this man right here, a man who changed the game of basketball and the greatest shooter of all time in Steph Curry. But coming off the Warriors' fourth title and their quest to repeat in 2023, a seemingly insignificant altercation in which Draymond Green tried to level his own teammate in Jordan Poole would lead to a downward spiral of the Golden State Warriors and ultimately ending the dynasty as we know it. Obviously, we didn't know it at the time, and the Warriors, as well as Draymond and Poole, would shrug it off, acting as if they had put the punch behind them, but this would ultimately lead to a level of distrust and loss of respect among players in the locker room, as well as bubbling up into the front office. The Warriors at that time did not suspend Draymond Green for his role in the altercation with Poole. In fact, he was handed a gift by being able to skip the rest of training camp, and that never really sat well with Poole. Now, of course, we all know Jordan Poole will go on to get paid in what is arguably one of the worst signings of Bob Myers' career as the GM, paying him 4 years, $140 million. A thank you for his role and performance in the Warriors title run, but also maybe a little extra to say, sorry about Draymond, but this is who he is and you kind of have to deal with it. Jordan Poole would go on to have a terrible season, clearly not in the right headspace and clearly friction between him and the players as well as the coaching staff. Thus, the Warriors would trade Jordan Poole in the offseason, relinquishing a first-round pick just to get off his contract and take on Chris Paul in return, while Draymond Green will get a big contract extension worth $100 million. But why are we talking about Draymond Green here, when we just learned that Klay Thompson, a man who's been with the Warriors organization since they drafted him in 2011, is now out and on his way to the Dallas Mavericks after having signed a 3-year, $50 million deal? What does Draymond Green have to do with Klay Thompson ultimately deciding to leave the franchise where he has spent his entire career and made him the player that he is today? Well, it has more to do with Draymond than you think, as well as the poor mismanagement of the front office in recent years, so let's talk about it. As always, if you're new to the channel and you like this type of content, then be sure to subscribe to help the channel grow. We actually just passed 75,000 subscribers, and I cannot thank you all enough for the support on the channel, especially those of you who came over from my first channel, my main channel in Bulls Central. Let's see if we can now get the channel to 100,000 subs by the end of the year. Now, last season was a disaster for the Warriors, to say the least. Granted, I don't think anyone expected them to be title contenders given how competitive the Western Conference has become and the rise in some of the younger teams like the Thunder, the Timberwolves, and of course the defending champion Denver Nuggets. But at the same time, I think most expected they would be better than finishing as the 10th seed in the West and missing the playoffs by getting blown out in the first play-in game against the Sacramento Kings, getting blown out by a team who didn't even make the playoffs themselves. And throughout the year, the Warriors saw a lot of ups and downs, some good winning stretches, but also a lot of stretches of poor play, frustration on the part of players for not doing their job, Steph Curry looking visibly frustrated with guys as he was doing everything he possibly could to carry the team, and then of course, there was Draymond. Draymond becoming more and more unhinged throughout the season, putting Rudy Gobert in a chokehold, throwing Yusuf Nurkic to the ground like a rag doll, getting into altercations with what seemed like damn near everyone, the Warriors having to suspend him indefinitely for sending him to get help with therapy. Not that any of that worked, since he just came back and was the same Draymond doing the same shenanigans as before with little self-awareness and zero care for the consequences of his actions. And all the while all this drama of the season was unfolding, the Warriors clearly not being a top team anymore, Klay Thompson sees all of this unfold. He sees the Warriors turning a blind eye at Draymond's antics and letting him get away with it. He sees them giving him a $100 million extension when he's clearly fallen off as a player. They also gave him said extension in the summer where Klay Thompson himself was extension eligible. And when it came time to talk about what Klay wanted, the Warriors tried to lowball him and not showing commitment to him in the future or the same loyalty that they've shown to Steph and Draymond Green. Now, to be fair to the Warriors, I get the hesitancy around wanting to re-sign Klay Thompson to a longer-term deal. He clearly is not the same player that he used to be and has been on the decline since his major injuries following the 2019 season. Last season was especially bad for Klay Thompson, and it was capped off by an abysmal performance in the play-in against the Kings where Thompson went 0 for 10, 0 points in 32 minutes of play in a blowout loss. So yeah, if you're the Warriors and you're seeing this era of the Big Three coming to an end, yeah, I would be hesitant to give Klay a fat extension at age 34 coming off a down season. But at the same time, if you look at this from Klay Thompson's perspective, I've been with this franchise since 2011. Yeah, I'm not Steph, but without me, you likely don't win all 4 of those championships. Don't forget Game 6 Klay. I helped put this team on the map and made it a global brand that it is today. I'm at the tail end of my career and you're going to quibble over a few $1 million while you're out here giving a loose cannon a $100 million extension? Like, I can see the frustration from Klay from his perspective. Like, he probably realizes and knows he's not the player he used to be, but he also wants some sort of loyalty contract, having been one of the core pieces of this Warriors dynasty. Instead, they passed on extending him last summer, and when he was approaching free agency this summer, they botched the negotiations and fractured that relationship. We heard from countless reports that Klay had really been soured on how the Warriors were handling his contract negotiations, and even further would go on to add that the relationship was beyond repair and that he would not be returning to the team. And of course, shortly thereafter, we get the word that Klay Thompson has signed a 3-year deal to join the Dallas Mavericks. A bit of a surprise. I think most people assumed that he was going to be teaming up with LeBron and the Lakers, but evidently a big decision for why Klay actually chose Dallas was he didn't want to pay state income taxes to play in LA, which is funny considering the amount of money he's made over the course of his career. But regardless, Klay is no longer part of the Golden State Warriors, and it's the end of an era, the end of one of the better dynasties we have seen in NBA history. I've never been a fan of the Warriors, and I couldn't stand it when Kevin Durant pulled one of the weakest moves in joining that team to win some easy titles, but you also can't deny that they were an incredible team. Their pace and style of basketball was incredibly fun to watch, and you can't deny that this team changed the game. They changed how the game of basketball is played in an NBA that is now heavily predicated on three-point shooting was because of the Warriors and the style of play that led to winning. I think the biggest thing now is, where do the Warriors go from here? Because while I get that they're still trying to do everything they can to push to win now while they still have Curry playing at a high level, at the same time though, Steph is 36. Draymond Green is 33. Even as currently constructed with Klay Thompson, they weren't that good. In my view, this team has hit their ceiling and would make more sense to scrap everything and start over. They're not going to do that, of course, because it would be insanity to trade Steph Curry, but think of the kind of haul they could get for Steph. A player who maybe has 1 to 2 good years left, a package where you can get multiple first-round picks and even some young players in return, and you can start a process of rebuilding in a world post-Steph Curry. I mean, they have to plan for that eventually. Steph isn't going to be around forever, but more likely than not, they're just going to keep kicking the can down the road until he's a distressed asset at the tail end of his career. There have been reports that the Warriors are looking to make an all-in move for Lauri Markkanen, but man, I just don't see that being it. I don't see that moving the needle for them and getting them back into title contention. And you're going to trade away most of your future, the little future you have left, for Markkanen, and then after Steph retires, I just don't see it. I could see the Warriors making that move because they're likely going to be desperate now after losing Klay Thompson, and they know that that's not going to sit well with Steph, who's been his partner in crime for the majority of his career. But I feel like making an all-in push for Lauri Markkanen is just going to set them back even further. Sure, it would make them slightly better in the short term for where they are now, but how does that position them in the long term going forward? Because we know the Jazz aren't going to give up Markkanen that easily. Danny Ainge is looking for a fleece job, and the Warriors might just give it to him. But anyway, this is going to be strange. It's going to be strange not seeing the Warriors Big Three together next season. It's literally been a part of our NBA fandom for over a decade now. Best of luck to Klay on this next chapter in Dallas. Let me know what you guys thought of Klay signing with the Mavericks. Let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.